What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder. I'm Warren Thompson, and it looks like, for the time being, Sony and Marvel Studios are playing nice with each other. At least in one aspect of the MCU and one aspect of Spider-Man 4. It looks like they have agreed on one major thing to happen in Spider-Man 4, and that is that Miles Morales will make his MCU debut in the movie, which is incredibly exciting news. Now, it's still unsure on whether or not Sony really is going to push Marvel Studios to make Spider-Man 4 a big multiversal film, or if Marvel Studios will get their way and convince Sony that Spider-Man 4 needs to be a more grounded superhero film. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like the inclusion of Miles Morales really confirms or denies any of these plot details that might happen for Spider-Man 4, because Miles Morales could be introduced in two different ways into Spider-Man 4. However, thanks to another report about Miles Morales in the MCU, it looks like we might have a little bit of insight on what Marvel Studios is planning for the future of Spider-Man and Miles Morales in the MCU prior to Secret Wars and then after Secret Wars. So we're going to break down it all in this video, so be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the latest Spider-Man news. So as it turns out, Marvel Studios and Sony have pretty big plans for Miles Morales in the actual MCU, not in the Sony Spider-Verse, but in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They have plans to introduce Miles Morales in Spider-Man 4 and then plans after that. But first, let's start off with how he could enter Spider-Man 4. Now, like I mentioned, there are two different ways they could do this. One thing that you have to know if you haven't heard recently is that Sony and Marvel Studios are kind of butting heads right now about Spider-Man 4. Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios wanted the next Spider-Man film with Tom Holland, Spider-Man 4, to be a more grounded Spider-Man film. That's what they set up for Spider-Man No Way Home. Peter Parker is finally on his own. He's in his crummy little apartment with his police scanner, and he'll be fighting crime on the streets of New York City. Really grounded, a Spider-Man that a lot of us are very familiar with. And again, that was set up by No Way Home, which of course was done by Sony as well as Marvel Studios. But now, Sony came in and said, we want Spider-Man 4 to be a big multiversal Spider-Man film. Again, Spider-Man No Way Home was the most successful Spider-Man movie of all time. Let's essentially double down on that and do it again, but bigger. So that's where Sony and Marvel Studios are butting heads right now. Kevin Feige doesn't want to do that. He wants it to be grounded. Plus, Sony wants Spider-Man 4 to come out in 2025. And right now, Kevin Feige is reportedly way too busy and spread way too thin already, working on a lot of projects, new ones and old ones that they are doing reshoots and rewrites for. And if Sony gets their way, then in 2025, Kevin Feige would have to push the Fantastic Four back to the end of 2025 and push Blade back to 2026, which he obviously doesn't want to do. But the good news is, at least they have agreed to bring Miles Morales into Spider-Man 4. So again, two different ways Miles could enter the MCU. One is that Sony gets their way, and Spider-Man 4 is yet another Spider-Man multiverse film. Miles Morales could be a variant. Now, this option is less likely. I don't believe that this Miles Morales in the MCU is going to be the same Miles Morales that is going to come over from the animated Spider-Verse, the one from the Into the Spider-Verse movies. I don't think that is going to be the case. But of course, that is an option, and you never really know what Sony is going to want, and we don't really know how Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse is going to play out. Some people speculate that Beyond the Spider-Verse actually means live action. And again, with Sony, you never really know. However, I still think that is less likely because we already have Miles Morales in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We haven't seen him yet, but he has been mentioned. A lot of you might remember Donald Glover, aka the Childish Gambino, playing Prowler in Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, we didn't actually see Prowler, we just saw Aaron Davis, not in his Prowler outfit, but we of course know that Aaron Davis is the uncle to Miles Morales, and he did even mention that he has a nephew who lives around where they were, confirming all the way back in Spider-Man Homecoming that Miles Morales does exist in the MCU. This is why the second option makes much more sense, because Miles has already existed in the MCU for some time. So introducing him would simply be he has to meet Peter Parker. And I think the setup here is pretty easy. They could both meet, Miles could meet Peter at Feast. Food Emergency Aid Shelter and Training, the place where Aunt May worked before she died in the last film, RIP. It's a homeless shelter that May used to work at and where Miles Morales volunteers. So Miles Morales is already there, and since it was a place of great importance to Aunt May, one could assume that Peter Parker would go on and he would volunteer at Feast in remembrance of her since she is gone now. And that is where he could meet Miles Morales. Now, if Miles Morales already has his Spider-Man powers, because who knows what they're going to go with as far as his story in the MCU, then Spider-Man and Miles Morales should both have their spider senses tingling, or Peter gets his Peter tingle, whatever you want to call it. And they both should realize that they both are Spider-Man. They both have some of the same powers. And from here, an insanely cool friendship should start. And hopefully a mentorship should start with Peter Parker mentoring Miles Morales. Now, the report of Miles Morales appearing in Spider-Man 4 is coming from Daniel RPK, who stated Amy Pascal and Kevin Feige are planning to introduce Miles Morales in Spider-Man 4. But he also did say this: the live-action Miles Morales films will take place in the MCU, which again is another great thing, because when they announced that they were going to make a live-action Miles Morales movie, and in case you missed it, yes, Amy Pascal did already confirm they are making a live-action Miles Morales film, but this confirms that it's going to be in the MCU, because we had no idea if this was going to be a part of Sony's other Spider-Man kind of related universe, or if Marvel Studios was going to get to use him in the MCU. And now, according to this report, we know. Now, Amy Pascal did say recently, when asked when we are going to be getting that live-action Miles Morales movie, she did say they have to make two other films first, referring to Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse and Spider-Man 4 in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which now makes a lot of sense because we know that Spider-Man 4 will introduce Miles Morales to the MCU. So of course they can't have their own Miles Morales movie until he's introduced. Now, of course, and this is kind of sad, but it does seem like they're doing this so Miles Morales can take over as Spider-Man in the MCU once Peter Parker and Tom Holland move on. From what we know, Tom Holland signed a contract for 3 more Spider-Man solo films, Spider-Man titled films, and then 3 Spider-Man team-up films. Of course, 2 of these are the next 2 Avengers movies coming out, and we don't actually know the 6th one yet. We believe it could be maybe in Daredevil Born Again, maybe Captain America Brave New World, but we're not actually sure at this point. But the point of that is, ultimately, after the multiverse saga and in the next saga of the MCU, we'll have 2 more Spider-Man films, Spider-Man 5 and Spider-Man 6, and then Tom Holland is most likely going to move on, and Peter Parker with him. And that'll leave Miles Morales as the new Spider-Man in the MCU, which is really cool because we're going to see Miles Morales and Peter Parker interact with each other a lot, hopefully in all 3 Spider-Man films that are to come. Hopefully in each one we start to see Peter Parker training Miles Morales in how to become Spider-Man, how to become better, how to use his powers, how to be a hero, and of course build up to the 2 of them fighting together. This also means that perhaps Miles Morales could take part in the events around Avengers Secret Wars. And here's the deal, since Sony wants Spider-Man 4 to be a big multiversal film and obviously bring the other Spider-Man back into the film, this means that they are probably open to bringing some characters from their Spider-Verse adjacent universe over into the MCU for Secret Wars, which does mean perhaps the animated Miles Morales could jump over into live action in Secret Wars momentarily. I mean, after all, we did get Aaron Davis, Prowler, Childish Gambino playing that role in live action in the animated universe. That was in Across the Spider-Verse, if anybody missed that. But that also means perhaps we could get characters like Venom, and I say this as a meme, but Morbius. And maybe it'll even help explain what the heck is going on with that Sony Spider-Man adjacent universe. The good news about all of this is that we are finally going to get Miles Morales in the MCU. It sounds like Peter Parker is going to be his mentor, and ultimately Miles will be the new and only Spider-Man in the MCU once Tom Holland is done as Peter Parker. And the good news on top of that is it does sound like Sony and Marvel are at least agreeing on some things. Perhaps Spider-Man 4 has not been agreed upon yet, whether it's going to be a big multiverse film or a grounded film, but at least they have agreed that Miles Morales is going to be in the film, and I am super excited for Miles to be in the MCU. But go ahead and let me know your thoughts about this in the comments down below. Do you have a theory on how he could appear? If you do, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you can stay up to date on the MCU. And if you subscribe and leave a comment, you're entered in our giveaway for a chance to win a PS5, an Xbox Series X, and some Marvel Legends items. The winner picks one item, and we pick one winner at the end of each month. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.